Hi, my name is Amanda Rodrigues, and I want to thank you and pat yourself on the back because you've taken the first step towards your law school career. Now you've gotten in, you've taken the L side, it's all behind you now. You're just preparing for that first law school class, and I know it's crazy and it's daunting and you're probably scared. So we're going to give you about an hour of some fun tips on how to be a little bit better prepared for that first class, and for every class subsequent, you're going to deal with a tough semester. You're going to deal with a lot of things that you never dealt with before, so here we go. We're going to get through this. We're going to do it together, and I know that you are going to be a little bit more prepared, at least for the coming semester, by watching these videos. I know that you're going to walk in feeling more confident and knowing the material just enough that you're going to be able to walk in and say, you know what, I don't feel completely lost like the rest of my classmates. So here we go. We're going to walk through class preparation. Now, class preparation is probably the most important thing when you're thinking about any law school class. Like, sure, it's important to sit there and take notes, but what you're doing before class is almost as important. I would say even in some cases more so, because you're digesting the information. You're sitting there and you're reading it and you're understanding. And that's the part in law school when you'll start to pick up on these cases, when you're sitting there and you're reading them and you're going, you know what, oh, wait a minute, now I get it. There's this moment in law school, and it happens to everybody, when law school finally, and everyone says it, it clicks. You finally start to understand what the material is. As you're reading, you're starting to say, hey, you know what, I remember that. Or hey, you know, I'm catching the right issue here. And it's all about that preparation. It's about that time before class that you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, I'm digesting this material, and I'm finally starting to understand why this teacher is giving me this case to read. Most law school students in their first year walk in and they think, I'm going to do what I've done in every other class, and I'm going to memorize each and every rule that the book sets out. And that's just not, number one, it's not feasible. You're never going to be able to memorize every law in every book. And number two, it's not what the teacher wants you to do. It's when you really start looking at those facts and you're able to apply the facts to the law that you're going to sit there and say, you know what, wait a minute. I get it now. I get what everybody is talking about. Law school is finally starting to click for me. For me, it took me a little while to get into that. I definitely walked in and was terrified. I sat next to people that were much older than me, and I could not get my head around this whole law school idea. It was finally in my second semester of law school. I'm sitting in property class, and the teacher asked a question. I raised my hand and I got the answer right, and it was this moment where I was like, oh, I didn't even know I knew the answer. You have to understand that law school is one of these great animals of the unknown. You're going to sit there and not know everything when you first walk in. You're certainly not going to know everything at the end of the semester. It's all about these moments in between when you're kind of being able to digest information, when you're able to sit there and put yourself in the position of plaintiff and defendant and say, you know what? I can see the courtroom. I can see what's going on. Another class that is really important to think about that is civil procedure, which can get really dry because you're sitting there reading rule after rule, and you're reading the shoe case and you're like, I don't understand where this is going. Imagine that you're the attorney and you're sitting there and you're looking at a case and you're going through the motions of filing this claim, and you're like, hey, wait a minute. I'm understanding how I'm putting my one foot in front of the other. And you know what it's all about? It all comes back to how you've prepared for that class. You also want to consider, why is the writer including this in the textbook? Now, some of your textbooks are going to have been written by attorneys that have practiced for 20 years or 30 years or 50 years. Some of them are going to be written by your professor, and those are definitely the ones that you want to sit there and say, you know what, I need to know why this case is in here. More times than not, they've included these cases because, guess what? There's something in that case that changes the law from what it was before, or there's something in that case that is outlining what it is that's important about that area of law. So you're thinking about in tort law, is this intentional? You're thinking about in tort law, is this negligent? You're thinking about in contracts, has a contract been formed? Remember that this case is in there for a reason. It's not just they're giving you some reading to take home because they think you might improve just by reading a book. They're thinking this case specifically is going to give them some idea into what it is to be a good tort lawyer or a good contract lawyer or a good patent law attorney. You have to start thinking really in the mind of your professor. And every case is going to be different. Every class is going to be different. Every professor is going to be different. But it's really all about understanding what it is that your professor wants you to get out of the class, wants you to get out of that one case that's going to give you the steps and the tools that you need to be the best law school student you can be. When you're sitting in your class, you've prepared, you've read all the cases, you're sitting there, and the professor starts to ask a question. Make sure that you're asking yourself, why is that professor asking that question? It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the professor really wants to know the answer to that because they can't figure it out themselves. Write the question down. When you're reading those cases back after you've gone through the class, ask yourself, okay, I have a case and I've briefed it, and here we go. I have my facts, my issue, my rule, my analysis. Why did the teacher specifically want to know this question, the answer to this question? And the answer to that is because she or he wanted you to be a better lawyer. And that's one of the questions that you have to ask in preparation of your mind to start digesting the information that he or she wants you to digest. Now, every teacher is going to give you a set of cases, and generally for class, it's going to be between 50 to 200 pages of reading for every single class period. It's a huge amount of reading. The reading is really, really important. This is not a class situation where you can kind of breeze through it, take a note or two, highlight where you need to highlight, and then walk away. These are cases, every single one, that you are going to have to sit there, read through again, and get yourself into a groove of, this case is important to this class subject because X. You must read for every class, every single one. You can't say, oh, I don't feel good tonight, I'm not going to read for class tomorrow. The way that the law school thing works is called the Socratic Method, and it's one of those situations where you have a bunch of kids who always sit in the same place. The teacher has a pad in front of him or her that has where each person is sitting, and he or she will undoubtedly call on you when you are unprepared. You have it written on your forehead when you're sitting in law school class and you haven't read the cases that you're supposed to have read. The teacher will know, trust me. I can definitely think of one specific contract class where I was unprepared and the teacher most definitely called on me, and you feel like you're an idiot. You feel like you blew it. Here's the one chance for you to, show off that you're not as, clueless as you thought you were, and the teacher is calling on you and you're unprepared. You never want to be put in that situation, number one, and number two, when you start to get behind, it is so hard to get caught up in law school. Things just move really fast. The semester goes by in a blink of an eye. You need to read for every single class. That includes the cases, any dissents, any concurrences that are included, and unfortunately you have to read all of those notes that are written after every case because they are important. The teacher will consider them when he or she is asking questions. And sometimes, if you're really paying attention, the actual questions that the teacher is asking is going to be from that note section. So he or she will say, you know what? This note really is putting forth an issue that is important to this case. So what am I going to do? I'm going to ask that question. And if you've read it already, you kind of have a step up on everybody else because chances are it's going to give you another case. It's going to cite somebody else that answered that question. And you're going to be able to say that and pat yourself on the back and feel really good about yourself for the rest of the day.